Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to call to order the 12 p.m. City Council meeting of May 14th, 2018. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Go,
Here.
Vice Mayor Smith,
I am here.
Councilmember Rivera, Councilmember Gonzalez, Councilmember Weir,
Here.
Councilmember Sullivan,
Here.
Councilmember Parlier.
Here.
To comply with the Brown Act, we'll receive public statements now. Please limit your comments to the Department Budget Workshop items only at this time. All statements are given a 3-minute time limit, 15 minutes per subject. Are there any public statements? Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Under workshops, we have the department budget presentations. Mayor, at the request of staff, item 3A2, department budget presentation from Visit Bakersfield, will be removed from the agenda and rescheduled for a future meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Tandy?
Well, good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. Chris Hewitt, City Manager's Office. As we get the screen down and the computer loaded, I'm going to be covering the general government portion of the budget today, and that will generally include the Mayor, City Council, City Manager's Office, which also includes the City Clerk's Office, Human Resources, Risk Management, and Technology Services. Jumping right in to the Mayor and City Council, generally not a lot of change in the budgets year to year here. There's some slight changes in the Mayor's office just due to a retirement on staff. Otherwise, the budget's relatively flat. The City Council budget also reflects just a slight increase due to some healthcare cost changes and actually some membership dues increases year to year. So again, relatively flat when you look at that in total. Oh, skipping ahead here. A little bit about the executive department. The city manager's office oversees several different divisions, 2 assistant city managers and the executive staff, risk management and human resources, city clerk's office, technology services, and Visit Bakersfield. Talk a little bit about some of the accomplishments over the last year for these divisions. The Human Resources Division continued to work with the police department regarding recruitment strategies and looking at ways to improve those, and as well as the acceptance and enhancing advertising efforts. Also simplified the recruitment process for temporary employees through implementation of an online application system, making it much easier to accept those applications for temporary employees, as well as processing. Our risk management division continues to lead, along with human resources, the city's health and wellness fair that occurred last November. Had 40 local vendors and down at the convention center. It was well attended by city staff. And so they oversee that, as well as providing several different types of training throughout the year. Most notably, they provide some Cal OSHA regulatory type safety training. And so they completed several of those courses over the last year. Regarding the city clerk's office, they oversaw the reconfiguration of the city clerk's office space within City Hall North. The goal there was to improve building safety and provide better services to the public. If you go over there today, it is moving along, and there's a new counter in the lobby to better serve the public directly from the main entrance to City Hall North. They also commenced the implementation of some new technologies, specifically for electronic records request and coding services in order to increase, again, the city's transparency and efficiency efforts. Our Tech Services Division, again, maintains and operates hardware, software, all the technology that the city deploys. They have worked closely with the finance department as we've transitioned to a new banking system. They provided a lot of the technical support to ensure that smooth transition occurred. They've also gone out and improved network connections to outlying city facilities, removing some outdated technology with slower connection speeds with higher speed wireless links, and created a network. And so a lot of our outlying facilities, including fire stations, the wastewater treatment plant, community centers, they're now on this higher speed data system, which is great for all those uses out there. The city manager's office has been involved in quite a few accomplishments over the last year, including providing multiple budget outlook presentations, coordinating polling services regarding the potential sales tax measure, led efforts to complete the annexation of the Denon Island area, which has been a council goal to look at increasing government efficiencies by annexing those areas. So we are actually able to complete the Denon Island area this year. Led a team most recently to complete the downtown parking study and the ADA right-of-way analysis. Those are ongoing issues, but we made some really good strides this year in both of those areas. We also continue to coordinate ongoing efforts with high-speed rail and groundwater sustainability, and again, those are going to be ongoing throughout the years. Also, again, it goes without saying, but we continue to lead the efforts associated with the TRIP programs and seeing those projects come to completion. So what you're looking at here are the same numbers, just a little bit organized a little bit differently. And the blue on the top is by division, and you're going to see the percent and dollar changes to the right when we compare the adopted budget from last year to the proposed budget this year. Again, about a 4% increase. I'll go over some of those increases in just a minute and what's driving those. On the bottom, you're going to see how the department is funded. General fund, equipment fund, and self-insurance fund make up the three funding sources. Again, overall, about a 4% increase. In the general fund, what we're seeing generally is CalPERS cost increasing. We've talked about those at length over the last several meetings, and what we're seeing in the increases in the general fund for the division in the department are related generally to CalPERS rates going up. In the equipment fund, we continue to have our ongoing replacement cost for hardware and software that's come up for replacement. As we highlighted during the last budget meeting, about 75 MDC replacements for police, and the 20 computers over in the comm center next door will be replaced as part of the budget. And then the self-insurance fund, there's some increases into the programs, just again due to some program costs that are increasing. Finally, looking at staffing, we're not proposing any additions into next fiscal year. Remain at 64 positions department-wide. Again, about 5 positions below where we were back in 08-09. With that concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions you may have. Thank you.
Councilmember Parlier, were you about to press a button? I'm not seeing anything.
Nope. Yeah.
Oh, there you are now. Councilmember
I'm up.
Parlier.
Thank you. Well, Chris, I just want to thank you. I want to thank the city manager's office for all its hard work, and especially all the city manager staff that was involved in the kind of protracted process of the Denon annexation. There was a lot to that and putting all those pieces together, and I know we're going to be working on Harris next, but I want to thank you again for your help, Chris's help, and everyone involved. Thank you.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I too thank the city manager's office and all the assistance we get with all of our requests. I did have one question. You mentioned the parking study, and I was just wondering, when we had the presentation, the G Street improvements were going to be in this year's budget. Did that happen, or where are we at on that?
Yes, Honorable Mayor, Vice Mayor Smith. The G Street kind of Phase 2 parking improvement, there's dollars allocated in the capital improvement budget, and I can get you some more detail about that, but it's in the capital improvement program for next year.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Next, we have the AEG Rabobank Theater and Convention Center.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor, City Council members, City Manager Alan Tandy, Assistant City Manager Chris Huot. See, I did recognize you. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been in Bakersfield now almost 2 years. We're just so blessed with these great venues, the arena with a professional sports team, our theater with the symphony and Broadway shows, the amphitheater, the Ice Center, and all these other venues. I hope that the residents of Bakersfield really appreciate everything that we have here. Mr. Dorsey. I would like to recognize Ed Dorsey. I know everyone knows Ed. He's been here for many, many years, and he makes me look good almost every day, the best he can. So a little overview. This past year, we've had 90 events in the arena that have attracted over 400,000 guests, 122 events in the theater and convention center with attendance of over 100,000. We've had 15 events out at the amphitheater that have attracted over 25,000. And then the Ice Center, which will have a new name next month, the Valley Children's Ice Center, we've had over 25,000 people ice skate. Some highlights for the Arena Theater and Convention Center. We had capacity crowds for Nine Inch Nails, Tim McGraw and Faith Hill, Joe Coy, our annual monster truck event. And this year we had 2 performances of a family show called Paw Patrol. And if you have young kids, you certainly know what it is. That show far out exceeded expectations. It was a little nerve-wracking in that the 33% of the sales all happened in the last 5 days. But a great event. We saw the return of boxing to the theater with a nationally televised event. So, highlights of the amphitheater, Trace Atkins returned. I think he was here about 5 years ago. We had Oza Motley as part of a Halloween festival. The group America last night, Stephen Stills and Judy Collins performed. And then coming up, we have the group Yes, 50th anniversary tour, and that one's on June 16th. Ziggy Marley and Steel Pulse return. I think they were here 3 years ago. And then Kenny G will be in September on the 19th. And I believe I don't know that Kenny G's ever been here. So we're very excited about that. And the Ice Center, some highlights. As I mentioned, we have a new naming rights partner with Valley Children's Health. And then newly added is what we call the Little Kings program. It's sponsored by the Los Angeles Kings hockey team. And we maxed out at 100 memberships, and for $180, a hockey player, male or female, gets a full set of equipment and 6 weeks of hockey training. And then if they like the sport, they can continue on. But a great program to encourage kids to try hockey. And then the Ice Center will be hosting an academy this summer. Not here, I don't know if you follow along, but there was a terrible tragedy in junior hockey with a team of Humboldt, had a terrible accident, and 16 members perished. We did a fundraiser, which I thought was terrific. It had over 100 teams participate in a kind of a 3-on-3 tournament and raised some nice funds for that program. Overall, that program has raised over $15 million for the families and others. We are working with a group to, a couple of groups to recreate the Bakersfield Figure Skating Club. I don't know what it'll be called, but again, encouraging people to skate and to learn to skate and grow skating. And then just kind of as a side note, you may have at the Olympics noticed a lot of fuss was made about the U.S. curling team that won gold for the very first time, and we actually had 100 folks in our own little curling tournament at the arena, which was kind of fun, kind of to take a look and see if there's any interest in maybe having curling at the Ice Center. Now, sir, no problem. Some of the bigger events at the arena, Nine Inch Nails, Los Temerarios, Gloria Trevi with Alexandra Guzman, Tim and Faith, and Gloria, Alexandria, Nine Inch Nails, and Tim McGraw. I just want to point out that they were in the top 100 tours the last 12 months. So it's great to see big name entertainment come. Air One Positive Hits was a Christian show. Disney on Ice had a nice increase. That's an annual event that we get. Professional Bull Riders, which took a year off, we saw a nice increase. They will be back, but instead of in the fall, they're coming in April. The Monster Truck Show, which is great family entertainment. The Globetrotters, I don't know how old the Globetrotters are, but it's an annual event here and does very well. WWE. The annual CIF State Wrestling Championships, which is a great event for the community. They love Bakersfield and the arena. We added indoor soccer this past year. It's the second time we've had it, this time with the USA and Guatemala. The annual U.S. Army All-Star Bowl, which is an event for high school senior football players. Kevin Hart, which was Saturday night. And Sugarland, which is in June. Some of the events in the theater and the convention center, Pepe Aguilar, one of several Hispanic shows that we had the past 12 months. I mentioned the return of boxing, also the return of World Wrestling Entertainment. A new event, which is Bakersfield Collector Con, a comic book, comic show, which will be back and is growing. Dirty Dancing, which was part of the Broadway series, Teresa Caputo, Mannheim Steamroller, also part, and Rent, part of, and Buddy Holly, which you see, all part of the Broadway series. We had two illusionists with Jay Owenhouse and then David Blaine, Paw Patrol, which I mentioned, and then coming up June 15th is Jerry Seinfeld, which is on sale and selling extremely well. There's a lot of interest, and if you drive around Bakersfield, you can't miss the billboard advertising for Jerry Seinfeld. The amphitheater, we start the season every year with the 4th of July celebration. We had a couple of free shows, Fake-A-Palooza, radio station shows, Fake-A-Palooza, and also Festival Latino. Trace Atkins, our annual Gospel Fest. We had America, the Halloween Festival that I mentioned, Emmanuel, a Hispanic act, the Stephen Stills, Judy Collins last night. And then coming up is Franklin Graham, and then Yes, before July. And then the upcoming events after July, Comedy Get Down, which is a 4-comedian act with George Lopez as one of the headliners. Bronco is a Hispanic act. Keith Sweat and Jodeci, Jack White. Bad Bunny, if you're not familiar with Bad Bunny, believe it or not, that is a Hispanic show. Alejandro Fernandez with Los Tigres del Norte, Disney on Ice, Monster Trucks back, the Globetrotters, CIF Wrestling, of course. Hopefully we're not jumping the gun on this next one, but verbally we've been told that we will have Cirque du Soleil, which is March 21st and 24th. So we're very excited about these events. Our major tenant, the Bakersfield Condors. 3rd year in the American Hockey League. We had 9 players spend time in the National Hockey League, which is the purpose of the Condors. It doesn't help the team when their best players go up to the National Hockey League, but it certainly points to the success of the team as far as developing players. The record, they had finished over 500, but unfortunately they finished 7th. Just 2 wins from making the playoffs. 4 teams make the playoffs, so that shows you how tight it was. Attendance down, unfortunately. We added 2 premium spaces, the Ice Level Lounge and a craft beer bar area, which actually resulted in increased food and beverage revenues despite the downturn in attendance. If you don't know, we'll be getting a new coach, and we will see if that makes a difference. So I think coaches get too much credit, good and bad, but anyway. So our attendance in the theater, I've mentioned the Broadway series, and you see the past season with Rent, Jay Owen House, Mannheim Steamroller, Buddy Holly, and Dirty Dancing. We might be jumping the gun here just a bit with the upcoming season, but on the books, not confirmed, are 4 really, really good shows with Chicago, Jersey Boys, The Wizard of Oz, and Stomp. And Neverland, no? We might have 2 more, so stay tuned. Very important to AEG and all of us is our involvement in the community. We do at least one job shadow day every year. A great event led by the city of Bakersfield was the Christmas tree lighting ceremony. That tree remains lit all the time now, but not with Christmas, not with holiday colors. But it's a great feature in front of the arena. And then we had this backpack giveaway in August. And not listed here is, but we try wherever possible to donate tickets to charitable events around the community. I think it's a great thing that when we can do that. Another important event for AEG facilities around the globe is sustainability and conservation, and you can see listed here the estimated water conservation efforts, our recycling efforts, and we say here only arena in state of California to be certified recycling collection program. We have our annual America Recycles Day, and then we've created partnerships with for hazardous materials recycling, including we sent I don't know how many hundreds of burnout light bulbs and paint. So a new item we want to talk briefly about is guest services and security, and through the efforts of the City Council, we will be adding metal detectors probably in the fall, September. There we will, when they arrive, there will be some assembly and training and testing before we go live with it. But of course, safety and security of our guests is our number one priority. So thank you, City Council, for the approval of the metal detectors. Our capital improvements requests, one big one, which no one will see, is the re-roofing of the majority of the convention center. As you all know, the convention center is 60-plus years old. Also, adding the HD high-definition upgrade to our arena scoreboards. We're going to upgrade the trade show power. The arena is now 20-plus years old, and so we've requested some monies to upgrade the suites with furniture, paint, carpeting, those types of things. And then we hope to add another premium area on the concourse, which is a bar area near the elevator. Our Independence Day celebration. Our budget this year is $70,000. The city is, we understand, will contribute $36,000 from the illegal fireworks fines. So we will be seeking donations and sponsorships of the additional $34,000 needed to put this event on. We're having conversations with several of the sponsors from last year. We don't have any commitments, but we're confident that with your help, we will get to that number. And now finally, our budget, operating income of just about $9.4 million, with operating expenses of 9.8. Per the agreement with the city, the $415,000 potential loss is covered by the city. Anything above that, AG Facilities is responsible for, and if our goal is to do better, and if we get there, then that revenue comes to the city. So that is my report. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Councilmember Parlier.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I want to thank you so much. The whole facility that we have, Rabobank, the Convention Center, the theater, I mean, it's a world-class facilities. And I just want to thank AEG for keeping those, you know, and all the entertainment that goes with it year after year. And I'm really happy with the lineup for this year, too. I want to thank you for, and all my colleagues, too, for the metal detectors that are being installed and the city manager's office that brought that item to us. You know, unfortunately, it's the world we live in today that we have to look for that kind of security, added security. I went to a San Diego Gulls game, and I had to go through the metal detectors there, and I wasn't cheating on a Condors, by the way. That was just...
They called me from San Diego.
Did they? My daughter interns there, so...
Okay.
Anyway, I'm really happy with that upgraded security. Now, with the 4th of July event, you know, we're a lot better off than we were, was it going on 4 years now? I brought the item to create the administrative fine process for the fireworks, illegal fireworks, to the Legislative and Litigation Committee, and I'm so happy now that we can donate a good portion of that money. Again, $36,000 in illegal fines will go to that. But I just want to, I've been involved with, and several of us up here too, have been involved with trying to get added money for our donations. You know, you said you've reached out. Do we have any commitments at this point?
We don't have any firm commitments.
Okay.
But we're talking to several, we're very optimistic, but I can't sit here and say, you know, so-and-so has signed on the dotted line.
Well, I know before going back 2-3 years ago, that we had a very narrow window as far as the fundraising. So all I'm asking is if we get a month, maybe 6 weeks out, and we still don't have a significant amount of donations, can you just give us an update so, you know, the mayor and council members up here can get on our high horse and hopefully try and get some added donations? for
Trust
that
me, I'll
too.
be knocking on your door.
Okay, very good. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Bye.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Thank you. Steve, great presentation.
Thank you.
I really enjoy the entertainment that your team brings to town. And actually, I was wondering this morning, who is it that does the recruiting, and is it the two of you?
Yes.
Or the two of you?
Yes, we work together.
Yeah, great job. And of course, we were out there last night, and Mother's Day was a mixed blessing.
Yeah.
Or to have a concert, but, you know, just
Two legends.
yeah, two legends.
Two legends.
Definitely, and it was just people, the audience really appreciated
Yeah.
them and really enjoyed them. The weather, of course, was beautiful. So, you know, just, and the Broadway series, I mean, we just have such a wide range of entertainment. And so we're very fortunate. And of course, the amphitheater is just such a wonderful venue, that entire park and area, and people are, you know, just continue to go out for the first time and realize how wonderful it is. And
Yeah, the first comment from the production manager when they backed the truck in and got off the bus was, wow, this is beautiful, and it's so great to be outside. I guess they've been doing a run of smaller theaters, and they started up in Seattle and headed this way, and I don't think they had, well, I know in Seattle and Portland, they didn't have this kind of weather. So they were pleased, lots of compliments, so thank you.
Lots of compliments. Well, to go out there, it's just a pleasure. And, you know, just always a nice group of people, very enthusiastic. So thank you to both of you. Keep up the good work, and we will continue to support you and just enjoy the entertainment you bring to town.
Well, thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much for the quality and variety of entertainment that you're bringing. Just a question about the proposed budget. How does that compare to the current year? Your proposed budget versus this last year?
It's very similar.
Okay.
We're not projecting increases in expenses or revenues. It's pretty flat.
You mentioned that the ceiling would be redone. I was at the Symphony on Saturday and noticed large chunks of the paint falling down. So the ceiling, is that the roof? You mentioned the roof being done. Is the ceiling being redone?
No, but after we redo the roof, if there's some touch-up we need to do in there, we will do it.
Do you know the spot I'm talking about? There's a really large chunk.
I do know the spot.
Okay. And then last question, just on the Little Kings, are there scholarships available for those who might not be able to participate?
Not that I'm aware of, but it's a possibility. But as you know, hockey is a very, very expensive sport, and so the $180 doesn't cover a fraction of the equipment nor the ice time. So,
Okay, thank you very much.
all right, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Attorney?
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, Virginia Gennaro, City Attorney. I'll be making the 2018-19 budget presentation along with my administrative assistant, Andrew Cadrill. So we start out with the organizational chart for the upcoming fiscal year, and this actually reflects just a very small change from last year due to the retirement of a legal secretary and a clerk typist, in which we inserted the administrative assistant position in lieu of the clerk typist and the accounting clerk position. So we've actually, our complement has dropped down to 9. I think you went a little bit too quick. Outside counsel, as you know, is a very critical component of our office, and Clifford & Brown is already under contract through fiscal year 2020 to handle tort cases on behalf of the city. You are currently under contract through 2019 with Martirosian & Cohen, and I am hoping that you approve the extension to the Martirosian contract through 2020. It will be on your next city council meeting agenda in May. Your water matters are being covered right now by Dwayne Morris, primarily Colin Pierce, and you may recall that you recently extended that contract out through the fiscal year 2019. And then the last 4 firms on the slideshow are the firms that the city attorney's office and the city manager's office, particularly the property division, they look to help for in your TRIP matters. As you know, when we talk about accomplishments, we divide it into 2 areas, both municipal as well as litigation. And in terms of our accomplishments for last year, we obviously spent a significant amount of time in compiling and helping the council with some ordinances as well as resolutions and some other what I would call transactional work. The top 3 in terms of the ordinances, as you know, clearly would be the activity and time that we spent with the commercial cannabis activity. We also then revamped the massage regulations in coordination with the police department, and then worked closely with development services in drafting the ordinance that you eventually approved for the microbreweries in downtown. The resolutions that we worked on, again, the top 3, I would generally indicate that those were the resolutions to increase and then ultimately decrease the water rates for your constituents as a result of the TCP settlement. There were several resolutions that the council considered and passed with regard to legislation. The resolution that you did in favor of funding for the Valley Fever program was one of them, as well as the couple of PACE program issues that you dealt with. And then in the transactional area, we have been working and will continue to work closely with the police department on the shot spotter situation, which I know is near and dear to council's heart. Not on this particular slide, but my office does participate in several public engagement activities throughout the community. Most notably would be the crime-free multi-housing workshop that the department puts on for your constituents. And our oral portions of those workshops generally concern rental agreements and crisis resolutions. In terms of the litigation accomplishments, actually very well this year. As you know, we closed all of the medical marijuana dispensaries that were known, at least to the city attorney's office and the police department. We collected close to $62,000 in marijuana settlement monies, and that was primarily due to council's passing of the ordinance, which allowed for a daily $1,000 fine. Mr. Rudnick from our office collected close to $42,000 in past due assessment taxes for the finance department, as well as dealt with an illegal sewer connection. And of course, we work with outside counsel in their trip matters. You had an eminent domain matter at your last council meeting, and all of our deputies represent the police department in pitches motions, which last year topped 150 on an annual basis. Just a little pie chart. I know that the council, I think, appreciated it last year. It just kind of shows you how our deputies account for their time during the year. Again, no surprise, I think, that the police department takes a majority of that triangle. The city manager's office comes very close, but again, keep in mind, please, that that also includes the city clerk, which has deals with a vast number of public records requests, human resources, risk management, as well as technology services. In terms of the accomplishments for litigation, when we talk about outside counsel, hopefully you would all agree that this year of tremendous help was the $54 million net settlement that came with the help of Barron and Budd on the Dow Chemical. We also disposed of 21 civil cases, 17 of those with absolutely no monies being paid either to plaintiff or plaintiff's attorneys. The difference there of the 4 were actually settled for less than $225,000. 2 of the cases went to trial, and both resulted in verdicts in favor of the city. Our budget for the upcoming fiscal year, as you can see, is a very small fraction of the overall close to 413. It's less than a percentage at 3.6, comprised mostly of 2 categories, the salary and benefits, no surprise there, and then again the torts, which is the self-insurance fund, and that is the composition of the outside counsel contracts, as well as a number in there for experts and costs. Our changes for next year, if you can really call them significant, is just a slight increase of $13,000 over last year when you, again, look at last year's budget. And that, again, from what you're hearing from the city manager's office, is due to the increase in benefit costs to the city. And as I mentioned in the first slide, we do have a small restructuring of the staff, and our complement is down to 9. So again, very flat, and go to the next one. Our last goal, of course, is to hopefully continue to do the same. We want to maintain that litigation posture, continue with those litigation accomplishments, maintain those municipal services for you, and obviously continue to handle as many matters in-house as you feel appropriate. And so with that, I'm available for any questions.
Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Jenny. Appreciate City Attorney's Office. The taking out all of the medical marijuana shops, I think, is a great accomplishment. We talked about that for years and had trouble, and it took a lot of steps and a lot of patience, and right things had to happen, and then there was good follow-up. So appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you for your outstanding service. I just feel like we can have great confidence in what you bring, and the work is always so thorough and timely. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mayor.
And one more now, Councilmember Sullivan.
Sorry, I pushed my button later than I intended. Jenny, would you explain regarding the ordinances, the microbreweries? I'm not remembering what work was done on that.
I think at the request of Ward 2 Councilmember Gonzalez, there was an interest in really amending our zoning code to allow for a smaller type of microbrewery downtown to kind of foster that revitalization, and I think he's satisfied with it.
Yes, thank you. That definitely triggers my memory, so I remember that very well. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Thank you. Next, Financial Services Department. Mr. Smith?
Mayor Go, council members, Nelson Smith, Finance Director. I'd like to introduce Assistant Finance Director Randy McKeegan, who will be giving this year's budget presentation for the Finance Department.
Good afternoon, Mayor Go, council members. Randy McKeegan, Assistant Finance Director, as you just heard. My pleasure to present to you the proposed budget for the Financial Services Division for the upcoming fiscal year. What you see here is basically the Financial Services Department goal. It basically tells you that we exist as a department to serve the needs of the city council and city departments to basically their financial related aspects of their needs so they can serve their, meet their goals and serve the city's citizens of the city of Bakersfield. And to accomplish that goal and to that end, the Financial Services Department is split into 4 divisions. We have the Treasury Division, Accounting and Reporting Division, Purchasing and Property Management. Dispersed among those divisions, we have over 32 dedicated and skilled employees I've had the pleasure of working with for the past 13 years. We've maintained a staffing complement of for the last 6 years, we've maintained a complement of 32 employees, and we propose no changes to that complement for the next fiscal year. Some of the goals for the department, something near and dear to my heart, is the comprehensive annual financial report. I helped prepare it for the last 8 years, and we once again received a Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association. That's the 36th straight year for receiving that award. Our Property Management Division acquired over 70 properties, many of which relate to the Thomas Road improvement projects that are ongoing throughout the city. We also sold 2 surplus properties. Finance Department continues to supplement general fund revenue with a rebate program that we entered into a number of years ago. The rebates are basically based on electronic payments made by vendors and purchasing card or credit card purchases that occur throughout the year. We continue to expect that revenue to increase. We actually negotiated higher rebate percentages with the new financial institution this upcoming fiscal year. And the city finance department continues to manage the retiree medical program, the trust fund that has been maintained for since 2007. With the annual deposits and the investment returns, the balance of that trust is currently $61.5 million. When you compare that to the liability of $140 million, the funded status is 44%. To put that into perspective, though, a recent survey showed that comparable cities that have these retiree medical programs have a funded status of 22.5%, so we are ahead of the game in dealing with that liability. I'm going to touch on some of the goals that we plan to accomplish this upcoming year. As the needs come up, the Property Management Division will continue to acquire properties for streets and roads projects, utility projects for things like water wells and expansions of the park projects throughout the city. The department continues to look at our procedures and improving them, whether it be in accounting, purchasing, or treasury, to basically improve our reporting, improve our internal controls, to reduce the risk of fraud. And to that end, this upcoming year, we're looking at improving our small dollar purchases procedures, and we're actually reviewing all of our written procedures manuals and updating those this upcoming year. Our Treasury Division is responsible for the collection of bad debts, and so to improve revenue recovery this upcoming year, we are looking at actually getting a new third-party collection agency, again, to improve our bad debt recovery of customers, city customer accounts. And we will continue as the grant funding opportunities for the TRIP program get more clarity. We've continued to plan, if the need does arise, to provide financing options if additional funds are needed to complete those projects. And now for the all-important numbers for the upcoming budget year, where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. Gets me a little excited. The total budget, as you see here, the third column there for the upcoming fiscal year is $3,869,000. This chart compares that budget to the current year budget and actual costs from last year. As you see there, our total increase for the budget is $128,000. I wanted to focus on that second section, which breaks out the funding sources of our budget. The general fund is the lion's share of our budget, $3.1 million, and as you see there, a $128,000 increase from last year's budget. Again, you'll be hearing this continually. The primary driver of that increase is our benefit costs, and primarily of that $128,000, $123,000 relates to benefit costs. Oops. Now I wanted to touch on some financial related aspects or issues that relate to the city as a whole, specifically the retiree medical subsidy program. We just received our biennial actuarial study. It was completed last week, and I wanted to kind of go over the results of that actuary. Just a brief review of this program. The city subsidizes medical premiums for our retirees who basically have 15 years of service. The program is basically calculated at 3% per each year of service. We also have the majority of our current retirees receiving a 42% subsidy based on the current PPO premium. The program was closed to new employees hired after January 1st, 2006. Based on the most recent actuary, as I said, we just received it, there are 754 retirees currently receiving this benefit. There are approximately 600 current employees that may be eligible for this program upon retirement. As I mentioned, there is an unfunded liability. It stands at $78 million. And again, I touched on it. That's 44% funded status. What you see here is the progress of that liability in relation to the trust fund that was established in 2007. As you see, the actuary as of January 2017 shows a liability of $140 million. The balance of the trust that we've established is $61.6 million, leaving us with an unfunded liability of $78 million. Again, just want to reiterate that puts us well ahead of the survey that we actually looked at, that shows that the average is 22.5%. We're at 44%, so I wanted to reiterate that, and that we're basically handling this. There are many in that survey that had no money set aside for that liability. With that, both Nelson Smith, as Finance Director, and I are available for any questions you may have.
Councilmember Weir.
Thank you, Mayor Go. Do you happen to know off the top of your head what happened from 2014 to 17 to make that liability spike up by $30 million?
I'd have to look into it. It could be related to the market progress, the market actuarial, the review of the market activity after the last couple of that period of time. But we could definitely look into it and get you that information.
Okay, I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations on your 36th year. Do you know what percentage that is out of all the people who participate? Are we?
Who received the award?
Yes, who received
Actually,
the
I do
awards?
not know that. I could get that for you, though.
Are we really special? I'm just curious.
I feel like we're special.
And then you mentioned that we are going to bring in a third-party collection agency. Approximately how much bad debt do we incur annually? Just ballpark.
Okay.
Mayor Go, our annual bad debt usually runs around $100,000 per year.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, Finance Team. And next, we have the Police Department. Chief? and team.
You're way back, I see. Okay. Honorable Mayor, council members, Lionel Martin, Police Chief for the Police Department budget. I'll be joined by Assistant Chief Domesticos and Assistant Chief Terry. And I want to personally thank our business manager, Darren Branson, who does the heavy lifting on our budget and our day-to-day operations. So our budget is always prepared around the council goals in regards to the police department and public safety, reducing response times, gang violence, reduce Part 1 crimes and quality of life issues, as well as community policing, domestic violence, interoperability, park safety, and neighborhood watch. There will be a couple of themes throughout our presentation, specifically around creating a culture of accountability both internally and externally surrounding the police department. Our organizational chart, we have 4 divisions. The administrative division, which reports directly to the chief's office, the operations division, which is under Assistant Chief Domesticos, and support services and investigations, which is under Assistant Chief Terry. A couple of things that are new there, you will see that we developed a professional standards division, which consists of a lieutenant who reports directly to the chief's office. His responsibilities are early intervention systems in regards to employee performance, as well as conducting internal audits regarding all of our systems and processes, and risk and safety issues surrounding the police department, police facilities, and litigation. Our proposed budget, as with the theme of everyone else, we're showing a 5.17 increase, with the majority of that surrounding benefits and benefit costs. We also have an increase in regards to the operations division, where we are specifically looking at 21st century policing models. The council will remember back in January I gave a report in regards to our efforts regarding de-escalation and the training that the entire department has gone through. We have now placed those costs to continue with continuous training in regards to implicit bias and principal policing, as well as officer wellness and officer wellness programs to continue to increase our credibility and competency regarding those areas of policing. So overall, it's a 5.2 increase to the general fund. Our traffic safety and supplemental law enforcement funds remain relatively flat. We do have some pending grants, specifically from the Office of Traffic Safety, a $691,000 grant to address DUI enforcement, checkpoints, distracted driver, bicycle pedestrian enforcement, and a few other things, along with our ABC grant of $98,000, which is in regards to overtime, decoy, shoulder tap operations, and ABC training. And again, our frontline law enforcement is relatively flat. We do see some difficulties, if you will, regarding pending grants in relation to the continued relationship between the federal government and the state government. So a lot of the federal grants, which we've gotten in the past, some of those are being held up. We've just now started to see some solicitation for federal grants, which historically we've seen in October, but now we're just now starting to see some of those things come out in April or May. So we may actually be afforded the opportunity to apply for some grants, but they're running 6 to 7 months behind in regards to this relationship between the federal and the state government. We'll also be able to resume our A Life Interrupted program, which is a partnership with all of the school districts where we take the trailer out and we have mothers, grandmothers, fathers, and grandfathers address all of the emotional and social issues surrounding drunk driving when a child is killed or hurt in regards to drunk driving. We'll increase the number of DUI checkpoints. Another significant issue is we have drug recognition expert training that we now have to do in regards to the recreational marijuana issues. We have researched the things that are going on in Colorado, and in partnership with the California Highway Patrol and the Kern County District Attorney's Office, is going to be imperative that our officers have very specific and expert training in regards to drug recognition and separating out whether it's an alcohol-related incident, spice incident, or marijuana incident. We will also be conducting more pedestrian safety enforcement in regards to our Office of Traffic Safety grant. We'll look at some crime trends in regards to things around and surrounding our community. As you can see, there were typically spikes and then a leveling out. However, most of the time it does not go back to the original level where it was prior to the spike. Most of those spikes are in direct correlation to some type of legislation around the state level, whether it's AB 109, Prop 47, Prop 57. We'll typically see some type of a spike and then a come down and a leveling out. However, it never actually goes back to the original spot where it was. When we talk about that leveling out, I always relate this to gas prices. You know, in the summer, it's $3 a gallon. It goes to $3.75. We all lose our minds, so it comes back to $3.25, and we're happy about it. Well, in police work, we're not happy about it because it started at $3, and now it leveled out at $3.25. We need to look at those things, look at those trends, and be active in not only state legislation, but the techniques and things that we do here locally to address these issues. Currently, we have 16 homicides year to date, where in 2017 there were 17s, and we have 16 year to date fatalities, where in 2017 there were 18. So we're trending a little bit slower, and we're hoping to keep that trend going that way, or in fact try to impact it to drop it. Coming in 2018, we have a 5-year strategic plan that we're working on. We have a chief steering committee that consists of myself and 6 people from the public, from different sectors of the public, and researching strategic plans. The assistant chiefs and the captains and I looked at strategic plans for probably 15 or 16 police agencies throughout the state. All of those strategic plans were written internally without any external input. So we put together the chief steering committee with community members, so we're now getting external input as to expectations and where we should be going as a police department and the expectations of our community prior to putting a strategic plan together. The body-worn camera project, which this council is well aware of, will be moving forward as of July 1. We're also in negotiations with a second vendor, so we may be able to run simultaneous projects to give us the ability to look at 2 different types of operating systems for little or no cost to that second system. I think that $18,000 is a drop in the bucket in regards to looking at that and reducing cost to Ginny's services and to our community as a whole. Employee training and wellness. The training will continue in regards to pillars 5 and 6 of the 21st century policing, looking at procedural justice and employee wellness and social, emotional, and organizational wellness, as well as taking that holistic approach that I've addressed several times. My philosophy is if we're not taking care of our people, how can we expect those people to go out and serve the public? Community partnerships. We have the Smart 911, where we're partnering with Kern County Behavioral Health. Last council meeting, the council approved our MOU with Kern County Behavioral Health, where now people can voluntarily enroll in the Smart 911 system. So if they have a family member who has behavioral health issues and 911 is called from that phone number, that information is immediately made available to patrol officers when they're responding, so we can take the proper precautions in addressing those issues and tailoring our response. Partnerships with CSUB. We're currently putting together an ethics and leadership training from an academic perspective. So we're partnering with CSUB to put that training together. That's going to come in the fall to all of our sergeants and senior patrol officers. We're also noted that we have partnered with over 100 different organizations with the police department in regards to community partnerships and some of the things that Chief Demestahos and Chief Terry are going to address in their part of this presentation. Investigations Efficiency Project. The council will remember that last year we talked about an operations efficiency project, which was patrol, and we talked about response times in relation to the 2014 IACP study and the things that we have done continuously in an effort to address the continuous improvement plan. This year we'll be looking at streamlining process in our investigations division, looking at clearance rates, and how that addresses crime and crime issues. So with that, I will turn it over to Chief Demestahos. Correct?
Chief? Sir. Honorable Mayor and City Council, Evan Demestahos, Assistant Police Chief. I'll pick up with calls for service and our Priority 1 response times. So as you can see from the screen, we continue to trend around 5.5-minute response time. It's up a little from 2016, but on par with 2015. The command staff of the police department meets weekly to ensure that these response times are staying on par for what we expect. We get a briefing every week on Priority 1s, 2s, and 3s, and the types of activities occurring in the city. So this is something that we take very serious. We do have some challenges with Priority 2s and Priority 3s as those creep up a little bit. Those are lesser property crimes and crimes that are not in progress, but we are addressing those and keeping an eye on those as we meet week over week. Next, I wanted to talk about animal control. Animal control for 2017-18 continues to show a lot of positive improvement. Our live release rates have continued to increase over 2016-17. You can see there's about a 6% increase in live release rates. You know, this is really due to proactive efforts and partnerships between the SPCA, Critters Without Litters, the Bakersfield Homeless Center. There's some wonderful things being done at the animal control facility. It's not just about the live release rate, but it's also the homeless center bringing in homeless individuals, teaching them critical job skills, and preparing them for that next step in life. So there's a lot of positive things going on. Some capital projects I want to discuss real quick. So we built that property room out the pistol range, and one of the things we want to do is install an emergency generator. We have items in the refrigerators out there, items of evidence that are critical that cannot go without electricity, so that backup emergency generator will help ensure and safeguard those pieces of evidence that are critical to our investigations. The K-9 unit trailer, the K-9 team is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week team that needs their own space, their own office. Their K-9 trailer is located at the pistol range. It's in terrible condition, and we're looking to replace that right now as a way to keep them active and have a place to go 24 hours a day. Finally is our BPD headquarters lobby. There's a few things we want to renovate and change. When you walk into the lobby to your left, you'll see a registration desk where gang registrants, arson registrants, and sex offenders have to register. We want to separate that out, create some more privacy there, give the people in the lobby the opportunity to have some separation from each other. We want to address some building security issues and make sure that it has the most effective flow and design that we can possibly have. And with that, I'll turn it over to Assistant Chief Greg Terry.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. Greg Terry, Assistant Police Chief. Talk a little bit about our personnel. Our total department complement stands at 555. That includes both our sworn staff and professional staff. As of today, our authorized sworn complement is 407, and we have 4 vacancies. We currently have 15 vacancies in our professional staff, and that was mainly due to our police dispatchers and some clerk typists. The 4 vacancies that we currently have today are counting 26 police trainees that we have. There are 18 trainees currently in a police academy that is scheduled to graduate in August. And as of today, this morning actually, we have 8 trainees that are going to be going into and attending the police academy that is being run by the Kern County Sheriff's Office. The recruits going into the academy today will graduate in October of this year, and we are hopeful to shortly begin recruitment and have another academy to fill the remaining vacancies in November of this year. Consistent with the council goals of engaging community policing and Chief Martin's vision of us enhancing our problem solving and community service efforts, these highlight some new programs and some things that have existed for quite some time. The first thing in the upper left-hand corner, the Police Academy Service Project. This was the project done by police trainees who graduated in our last academy. This was the first time we had done a project such as this. The project was selected and identified by the trainees themselves, and this particular one took place in Ward 1, where they went out into the 900 blocks of Bradshaw, Millwood, and Watts, made contact with the residents, and painted the address numbers on the curb, which is clearly a public safety issue, and it certainly assists us and other emergency personnel responding to addresses or areas or addresses on those streets. This also gave an opportunity for the trainees to go up and begin making contact with our residents and outside of an enforcement situation. And so it was part of our philosophy to begin this introduction into community service and community policing with them. Below them is a photograph of the impact team. The impact team is very instrumental into our problem-solving aspects of what we do. They handle thousands of calls for service every year, as well as thousands of hours spent on various projects and referrals. The upper right-hand corner, the principled policing and procedural justice classes. This is actually a statewide project and curriculum through a collaboration with the Department of Justice, the Post, California Post, and the Cal State Long Beach. This is an 8-hour class where members of the department and members of the community sit together and discuss different perspectives and help raise awareness to biases that can be barriers to our ability to work together. The tenets of this class is voice, respect, neutrality, and trustworthiness. We were one of the first agencies in the state to begin these classes, and they are ongoing monthly now, and we will get every member of the department, sworn and professional staff, to go through this. If you have 8 hours, I would encourage you to go through it. It is quite enlightening, and the perspectives of community members and the officers who have attended have both expressed some changes than what they felt like when they walked in the door that morning. The Junior Police Academy, we had 4 academies last year, 2 middle school, 2 high school, with a total of 147 cadets that attended it. Again, this summer, we have 4 additional academies, or 4 academies as well, both 2 middle school and 2 high school. Those are taking place at the Powell Center, and then the high school is occurring at the Bridge Church out on the west side of town. And our goal, hopefully, is to get 200 cadets through the academy this year. Continuing with our community relationships, we're expanding our use of social media and are trying to remove any barriers and more effectively communicate and educate the community. So social media is obviously a big part of that. A couple of photographs there. In the center is the American Migrant Stories. This was a documentary on immigration that the police department participated in partnership with the Center for Social Justice out of Cal State and the Immigration Justice Collaborative. In the lower left is The Waking in Oak Creek. This was a documentary on an attack in 2012 at a Sikh temple in Wisconsin. There was a screening of this film at Cal State, and following it, Chief Martin sat on a community panel answering questions about racism and bias, and different perspectives were heard on that panel. And I'll turn it back over to Chief Martin to close.
And finally, this was our first Kids and Cops event at McKinley Elementary. Actually, Chief Terry has a meeting this week in regards to continuing this partnership with Kiwanis and McKinley School. There was over 50 kids and about 20 officers who participated in this. This, again, is in line with our philosophy on a holistic approach to policing through prevention, intervention, and suppression. Over the last year, I've spoken with over 2,000 students between K through 12 and higher education in regards to leadership and the importance of education discussions in regards to making our community a better place through understanding that having access to education, being involved in leadership training, the subject is less likely to have a negative contact with law enforcement. So with that, I will answer any questions.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mayor Go. Chief, thank you so much for your presentation, and kudos to your entire team. I'm very impressed with the proactive work, as I stated in previous council meetings, primarily with the implicit bias training, which I think is a really important component to policing, and I just commend you and your leadership team for all the work there, and the entire department. I also am excited to hearing more about the ethics and leadership training coming up. I think that's an exciting endeavor, and I am pleased that you're partnering with Cal State to make that happen. I also was interested in the Smart 911. I think that's a really innovative tool that will protect a lot of people within our community. The way I understand it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that this will provide information to emergency responders on the condition, medical condition, and perhaps mental health condition of those who live in a home that at which the responder is responding.
That's correct.
And so if someone has a behavioral health issue, perhaps they're schizophrenic, or they're living with schizophrenia, or they may be living with a bipolar disorder, that the officer will know when they arrive on scene.
That is correct. It'll provide us with that information, therefore we can then maybe modify our tactics as to how we approach that situation with the goal to make everybody safe.
That's fantastic. I'd like to hear more about it as we roll that program out, if we can.
We will give you a report.
Thank you. I also want to commend the Impact team and all their hard work. It was mentioned that they received thousands of calls. I think half of them are from me. And I appreciate all of their work and being very proactive in various different neighborhoods. I wanted to ask a question regarding the priority calls. I noticed, and it was mentioned, that the response time has crept up by just a few seconds. The department has done a great job over the past several years at reducing that response time, and I wondered if what specific actions are. I understand that you'll be monitoring that response time, but what specific steps will be taken to keep that at a level that we can tolerate?
What we look at, Chief Domestos referenced the Thursday meetings. What we look at is staffing, sick time, what time of day these calls are coming in, and then how can we tailor our resources in response to bring down that call time or keep that time at a level that we think is respectable where we'd like to be. So we're always looking at all of the critical aspects of what could be impacting that response time. It could be something as simple as it could be a day where we may have had a bank robbery during the day, but you've got resources in court, you've got resources at the actual bank robbery, so other calls for service, the response time may have gone up. Is it an anomaly? Was it a one-day thing? Or was it something regarding staffing, people at training, those types of things? So we look at all of those issues in regards to what the response times are and why they fluctuate the way they do. Or it could just be a week where, let's say, the previous week you had 444 priority one calls for service, and the next week you have 480. So maybe there were more priority one calls, which then extended the response time. So we look at all of the aspects.
Great. Thank you. Mayor Go, one more question, if I may. Chief, you indicated the partnership with McKinley School, which is, I think, awesome. I know that we were successful at partnering with the Bakersfield City School District for 2 resource officers.
Yes.
For the BCSD. Are we pursuing a relationship similar with other school districts, and any update on that?
I actually have a meeting this week with Panama Buena Vista, Bakersfield City School District, Kern High School District, and there's the 4 of the districts that touch the city in regards to a myriad of issues in regards to response time, school security, and we're going to be talking about some of those things. In fact, Doc Irving wants a second meeting in regards to trying to bring more school resource officers on. However, we have to be very tactical about how we go about those things in regards to looking at priority one response times and other things that we need to look at from a holistic approach from the police department. But I am meeting with all 4 of the superintendents this week in regards to not just school resource officers, but a myriad of subjects.
Fantastic. Thank you again. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Parlier.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, we've had this conversation before. I think your leadership and your team is just doing a wonderful job for this city. I've said it before, too, that I think our public safety departments are arguably the best in the state. They really are. They work really do more with less and consistently have a can-do attitude. But with that, I want to talk a little bit about, excuse me, one second. A little bit about our crime trending. I noticed that our calls for service have gone up approximately 3,500 between 2016 and 2017. Homicides in 16, and I assume this is year-to-date, I'm correction, it would be the full year, were 32 in 16 and 42 in 17. And my point is, at a complement of 407 sworn officers, in a perfect world, where would you like to be?
Mayor Go, Councilmember Parlier, we look at, before I give you this number, I think it's good to put things into context. Organizationally, my direction has been to look at things look at crime from tangible, intangible, crime and fear crime, if you would. And we also look at anticipated cost of consequences of crime, and cost to the response to crimes. So, for example, anticipated cost would be you have a security system on your house. There's a cost associated with that from a holistic standpoint. Or a fear of crime. When we look at homelessness, if there's somebody out in front of a business, they may be harmless, but if somebody's afraid to go to your business, there's a cost associated with that because somebody is not actually going to your business and spending money. So we look at that holistic approach from the anticipation of crime, the actual consequences of crime, which is, okay, my house has been broken into, I have to fix those things, I have to pay my insurance, and then the intangibles, am I in fear because, the response time wasn't what I'd like it to be, and then our cost, which is the response to that, is the police department, is the tangible costs, and the intangible costs of the trainings and things that we're talked about here. So when you're looking at all of those things, I'm a numbers guy. They'll tell you that I'm very quantitative on how I look at these things. But, you know, for us at 407, when an average department our size is running a little bit around the 500 level, you know, I think that we should, optimally, with another 75 to 80 officers, I think we can start to address those priority 2s and 3s, the things that really are the complaints and the expectations that some of our, your constituents and the people who we serve are looking for those response times. And we could keep those priority 1s where they are, but we can also start to do the proactive police work that we used to do in the 90s and the 2000s. I use it as, you know, in the middle of the night, the officer doesn't have time to just sit in an alley, turn his lights off, and listen to see what's going on and maybe address something before it happens. We're going from call to call to call, which then cuts down on that proactive policing.
Well,
That answers your question.
Well, I really appreciate your explanation on that, Chief, and it kind of segues into my next comment. So, again, to get back to that can-do attitude with all of our departments and doing more really with less, I feel that, again, the city, and we've talked about that up here as a council, ways to, you know, mitigate that and look at ways to remedy it. But as an executive, when you do your budget every year, and this is going on the 4th year of my look at them, it just looks like a slow bleed is taking place as far as, you know, what we do, the amount of personnel that we have, and again, looking at the trending of that statistical trend that showed just that continual uptick, no fault of our own, but due to state mandates of 109, 57, 47 that continue to, you know, impact our city. Again, when you're an executive looking at your budget with your team, do you feel that having some sort of, you know, sustainable funding would help you in making those determinations in the future?
Absolutely, sir. I guess when you look at the slide where I talked about our investigations efficiency project that we're looking at, those are the things that we're addressing. If we continue on the path that we're on, from lack of a better term, we're going to be looking at maybe reducing that detective complement and moving those resources back into patrol, which means that we won't be able to look at crime trends the way that we have historically to be able to impact these things, because we have to keep those priority 1 response times down. And you know, patrol is the backbone of any police department. So as the executive, it is my role and it's my job to look at all the resources that we have. And if that's what we have to do, if we don't have that sustainable funding or the things to keep up with the trends, it has to come from somewhere. I think, to steal Assistant City Manager Chris Huot, there's no more meat on the bone. So I've never been a whiner. I'm not going to stand up here and complain. We're going to do what we need to do to keep the community safe. And as the executive, I'm willing and I will make those hard decisions if need be.
Thank you so much, Chief.
Councilmember Smith, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I would just reiterate what Councilmember Parlier said. We've been in a lot of conversations in the community, and the polling that we've done in the community shows that people appreciate our police department. They believe you're doing a good job, and they'd like more of you. And I think that's what I'm hearing you say. I also just wanted to state, you know, I really appreciate your attitude about wellness to your department, and I think the whole city staff should have that attitude. I think, you know, when employees are well and working towards good health and good mental health, that it's more efficient and better for the community as a whole. Just one other comment was the animal control and working with the homeless, and it's a win-win in all the ways the city does that, and really appreciate the police department working with that. And I would like, you know, if you can give me some dates on the principal policing class to try and participate in one of those. Thank you.
We'll get those to you.
Great.
Thank you for all your efforts. I see your people out there every Saturday at a community event and just very, very engaged in the community. Just going back to the wellness topic, is that the same program that we're doing with Kaiser, that collaboration with Kaiser?
That program is introduced in the academy. I think 3 years ago, working with Risk and Human Resources, we came to the realization that you have a culture within an organization, and to affect that culture, we have to start at different levels. So 3 years ago, we started with the academy to remove that stigma to begin with in regards to employee wellness. So I have been introducing that from my perspective at that time as assistant chief and now as chief in the academy. So there isn't some stigma when you start to talk about wellness that, you know, we see some pretty horrific things. We see things continuously and over, and that it's okay to talk about your feelings, you know, for lack of a better term. When I started as a police officer, you didn't talk about your feelings. You just sucked it up and moved on. So that's the Kaiser. But we've also, thanks to the city manager's office, Risk, and HR, we also now have a consultant that had worked with the fire department, and our fire partners turned us on to this provider who is now providing training to current staff, and the reviews have just been incredible. So the staff is receiving that. They now believe in it. They know that we as an organization are committed to them and committed to their families and their well-being, and we're not just looking at physical well-being. We're looking at social, emotional, and even financial well-being. We're bringing financial planners in to talk about the holistic approach of the employee, their family, and everything. So, I mean, it's just been a tremendous help from Risk and Human Resources, and that partnership's been great, and the feedback's been incredible.
Is that a program where people choose to participate, or does everybody go through that?
Right now, we've got a hybrid model going. So the ones in the academy, they don't get a choice, because, and then the employees that are current employees, we're slowly moving through from a voluntary standpoint, and then we're going to just start going shift by shift or division by division, and it'll just be a training class. Again, we're not going to force you, but we are going to show you what the options are, what EAP looks like, and all of the different things that are afforded to you that a lot of our employees have no idea just how many resources the city of Bakersfield offers to them. And, you know, as the chief, I was a little bit embarrassed when some of the things that Risk and HR talked about that I wasn't even aware of. So sometimes employees aren't taking advantage of it because they just don't know about it. So they put this program together. They've been coming in at night. We invite people and their spouses in, and those are the things that have just been incredible, because word of mouth is what really gets the organization moving versus something being told from command staff. So if we get those voluntary folks in there to say, hey, these things are out there, we'll get a better return on our investment than as the chief saying, you will go to this. And we're seeing that momentum.
Thank you. Anyone else? Thank you, Chief and team. And last, we'll have the fire department. Do you have a very long presentation? Do we need to have a quick break before? Okay, yeah, let's take a 5.5-minute break. Chief.
Good afternoon, Mayor Go, Vice Mayor Smith, council members, Doug Greener, Fire Chief, Bakersfield Fire Department. It's a pleasure to be here before you this afternoon to discuss the fire department's proposed budget for fiscal year 2018-19. And I'd just like to take a brief moment to thank the fire department's budget team, including Deputy Fire Chief Ross Kelly, Fire Department Business Manager Tony Crosby, and all of the chief officers that have participated in this collaborative effort. I'd like to specifically thank Deputy Fire Chief Tyler Hartley, who took the lead on the budget preparation process this year, including the budget documents and this particular presentation. So at this point in time, I'd like to turn our budget presentation over to Deputy Fire Chief Hartley.
Thank you, Chief Greener. Honorable Mayor Go and council members, My name is Tyler Hartley. I'm the Deputy Chief assigned to Suppression Services for the Bakersfield Fire Department, and it is my pleasure to have the opportunity to present our budget proposal for fiscal year 2018-19. I would like to acknowledge the entire management team from the fire department and the collaborative efforts from the city manager's office also. Our presentation begins with an organizational chart highlighting the leadership of the department and the specific branches that we are responsible for managing and leading: the Fire Suppression Services branch, the Fire Administrative Services branch, and the Fire Safety Services branch. Taking a closer look at our organizational chart, we see some of the different responsibilities and divisions that are found within each of these branches. The Suppression Services branch is responsible for our daily firefighters that are on duty each day, each battalion, 14 fire stations, the training division, and the arson division. Our Administrative Services branch, which is the responsibilities are shared by our chief staff, consist of the Community Services Division, the Personnel Services Division, Special Responses, and Fire Support staff, and our Fire Safety Services branch, which is responsible for our Dispatch Center, the Emergency Communication Center, Maintenance Division, Emergency Medical Services, and the Fire Prevention Division. Here we begin to look at our budget. And our budget on this slide is divided between three different categories: our salaries and benefits, our operating costs, and our capital expenses. We have compared the adopted budget from 17-18 to our proposed 2018-19 budget, and we've indicated a percentage increase between the 2 years. Salaries and benefits are at $36.7 million in our proposed budget, up 5.47% from our fiscal 2017-18 year. Our operating budget at $4.1 million, up 3.9%. And our capital budget, which is actually reduced to $150,000, or a 16.6% decrease. Our total budget of $40,961,318 is a 5.21% increase from our fiscal year of 2017 and 18. Another way that we like to look at our budget is looking at each of the previously mentioned branches: the Fire Suppression branch, the Fire Administrative branch, and the Fire Safety branch. We're looking here at the salaries and benefits and operations that are within each of those branches. Fire Suppression totals $36.5 million, or 89% of our budget, while Fire Administrative branch equates to $1.5 million, or a little over 3% of our total budget, and Fire Safety Services branch at $2.8 million, or 7% of our overall budget, equating to 100% of our budget. We also like to take a look at each division within those branches. Arson training and emergency response costs are assigned to our Fire Suppression Services branch, and we're indicating here the difference between the 17-18 adopted budget and the 18-19 proposed budget, and then the increases. So arson training and emergency response each slightly up, with arson at 8.7% up from last year, training at 2.8%, and emergency response costs up 5%. Our support and admin division is within our Administrative Services branch. It is up $65,000, or 4.5%. ECC, or our Dispatch Center, our Maintenance Division, and our Fire Prevention Division are all part of our Fire Safety Services branch, each slightly up at 2.7% for dispatch, 4% for maintenance, and a little over 9% for the Fire Prevention Division, again for a total of 5.21% from the previous fiscal year. The Bakersfield Fire Department strives to provide quality service to our citizens, and in our effort to accomplish that goal, we constantly measure performance and look at data. We measure our efficiency and our effectiveness, and we measure ourselves not only to state and national standards, but we also measure ourselves to other agencies. In this slide, we are measuring ourselves against local agencies. We see our proposed $40.9 million budget versus the county fire department budget of $142.2 million. We also compare ourselves with our productivity or our call volume. We responded to over 41,000 calls in 2017 to the county's 52,141. Additionally, we compare ourselves statewide. There are 9 jurisdictions or survey cities that have been identified to be similar to the Bakersfield Fire Department, and we compare ourselves to them also. Again, our $40.9 million budget compared to the other 9 jurisdictions' average of 50.3, and then our call volume at over 41,000 calls to the average of all of the 9 jurisdictions at 28,294. And we don't stop there. We look at ourselves nationwide also, which I will have a slide indicating that in just a second. But if we compare ourselves again to the other 9 jurisdictions, looking at the budget, we see where Bakersfield falls. At number 8 of the 10 with our $40.9 million. Fresno leading the way at 69.5 with Glendale right behind them at $68.3 million. And on down to number 10, which would be Oxnard. We did the same for call volume. Stockton leading the way here at 47,571 calls, but you see the Bakersfield Fire Department moving up to number 3 in this category at 41,000 calls per year. One way that we can compare ourselves nationwide is by using the Insurance Services Office, or ISO, ratings. The ISO rates over 49,000 departments across the nation. The ratings are from 1 to 10, 1 being the best and 10 being the least desirable. The elements that the departments are rated on are the fire department itself, the dispatching capabilities and the water supply within the municipality. And proudly, we were classified or rated as a Class 2, which in this chart, there were only 750 Class 2 departments and only 60 Class 1 departments, which put us in the top 810 or 1.5% nationwide. So how will we sustain our ability to continue to provide these services to the citizens of Bakersfield? And how will we continue to keep up that pace? Well, one way that we can do that, this year, within this budget, we are initiating an accreditation project that is created by the Center for Public Safety Excellence, or CPSE. This project is going to allow us to take a look at a quality improvement model, looking at risk analysis and self-assessment, which will allow us to provide performance standards and ensure that we're meeting industry best standards. The project will allow us to assess our current capabilities and then continue to compare our services to others. We will conduct a very serious community-wide risk assessment. We will develop a document called the Standards of Cover, which will allow us to look at different deployment models to make sure that we are as efficient and as effective as we possibly can be. And we will also engage in some strategic planning concepts and look into the future to make sure that we can sustain the services that are being provided to the citizens of Bakersfield. Moving forward, I'd like to focus again on the different branches and discuss some of the accomplishments and then some of the action plans for fiscal year 2018 and 2019. Under the Administrative Services branch, we have emergency planning. Each one of these task force committees is led by a battalion chief from our department. Each one of these task force topics have been identified as something extremely critical for our success. Operational planning, accountability, rapid intervention, which includes firefighter safety and firefighter wellness, our ability to respond statewide through the Master Mutual Aid response system, our ability to understand firefighting operations, search and rescue operations, hazardous materials operations, communications planning, both in emergency and non-emergency situations, and our ability to respond to emergency medical requests. Last year, the Bakersfield Fire Department responded to several statewide master mutual aid responses. There are 22 listed here. You can see that most of them are fires, but we also responded to Montecito, Santa Barbara area for the mudslides. We sent an entire regional task force team not too long ago to that event. Disaster planning. In 17-18, we conducted quite a bit of disaster planning and training for our personnel. We maintained our national incident management system and standardized emergency management system compliance. And we've also worked diligently on making sure that our department operations center is prepared for a local disaster. Our action plan for the upcoming year would be much of the same, maintaining compliance to NIMS and SIMS, engaging in strategic planning, and also ensuring that we're prepared for a local disaster. We have had quite a bit of success with grant funding, specifically state Homeland Security grant funds. And this year we have received over $158,000 on a couple projects that were extremely important to us. The one photo of one of our captains with a computer tablet in his hand addresses state and local EMS mandates, which require patient care reports to be capable of being conducted at the patient's bedside. This program allows our company officer to share report information instantaneously with the responding ambulance company and also with local hospitals, which creates a great patient care report that can be shared with all of the entities that will be assisting with patient care. And we've also purchased several thermal imaging cameras which will help us in firefighting operations. We have a very robust reserve firefighter program, and we believe in broadening our workforce with our volunteers. They assist with public education events, they assist around the fire station, they assist us in emergency response, and in return they learn the duties of a firefighter and their hope of becoming someday a professional firefighter, and we hope with us. Again, the Fire Explorer program is another volunteer program that allows us to train the young men and women of our community to become professional firefighters and actually to give back to the community while they are serving and learning about our profession. Capital improvement. We've done a very good job in recent history. Fire Station 8 was completely rehabilitated this past year. Fire Station 2 has a restroom rehabilitation project in process, and we are proposing some roof repairs and restroom rehabilitation and interior painting to Fire Station number 10 in this upcoming year, and also roof repairs with Fire Station 13. Here's a nice shot of the completed Fire Station 8 major rehabilitation project, and we are quite pleased with the outcome of this fire station. Large equipment update. In 2017-18, we replaced fire engine number 11. It's been delivered and will be in service soon. We also replaced Patrol 24, which is in service now, and we have 2 light fire engines replacing 301 and 308 that should be here this fall that will help us with firefighting services specifically next year in the wildland season. 18-19, we have proposed the replacement of fire engine 15, a replacement of light fire engine 305, and the replacement of another Patrol 210. All of those are proposed. In our Community Services Office, an extremely busy office for the department, they focus on public education and public information, working with the media, interfacing with the community. And in fact, last year there were over 300 public education and community presentations that were provided by this office. And we plan on doing much of the same in fiscal year 18-19, focusing on public education and information and working with the media. undoubtedly one of the biggest feel-good stories of 2017 was the rescue of Jack from a burning home in southwest Bakersfield. On July 19th, the Bakersfield Fire Department was dispatched to a house fire on Quarter Avenue. When firefighters arrived on scene, they were faced with heavy fire involvement and the report of Jack still being inside. During search operations, fire engineer Matt Smith located Jack, removed him from the burning building, but Jack, as you can see here, appeared lifeless and in critical condition. Bakersfield firefighters administered oxygen to Jack using a PET oxygen mask that was donated just a year prior by Girl Scouts Haley and Kaylee. After a few minutes of oxygen therapy, Jack was recovering.
I don't know if they're still looking. I saw them right when I walked in. You want to tell them that we got them? So they're not looking for them still?
By the next day, word about Jack's rescue had begun to spread across the nation, with 1.1 million views on social media and comments coming in to the department as far as the East Coast. The video of the rescue has gone viral, creating and generating interest around the globe. In late July, the department received an award from the People for Ethical Treatment of Animals, recognizing and commending the Bakersfield Fire Department for rescuing a dog from a house fire and resuscitating him. They stated, "May the department's act of bravery serve as an example for others to emulate." So needless to say, we're proud of the men and women of our department and their ability to make a difference in our community. And yes, this includes our pets too. Fire Safety Services branch. The Fire Prevention Division is an extremely busy division, totaling inspections of over 6,000, almost 7,000. Annual fire safety inspections, environmental regulatory inspections, oil and gas well safety, licensed facility approval, and then alarms and sprinklers, and final building occupancy approvals. And they do this with 6 inspectors and with the help of engine companies on occasion. They accomplished over 657 oil well inspections in 2017, which was a 3% increase from the previous year, and they also improved the records management system within the Coupa division. In the upcoming year, we will focus inspections on at-risk occupancies, which will hopefully reduce fires throughout the city of Bakersfield. Our dispatch center, in 17-18, we continued to upgrade to our mobile data devices, which are found in each fire apparatus. And our action plan for 18-19 is to continue the computer-aided dispatch upgrade and make sure that we can establish connectivity. And we will hire and train new fire dispatchers as per needed by attrition. Fire station maintenance. 17-18, we did quite a bit of rehabilitation on deferred maintenance. We also identified issues that were upcoming, and we created a 5-year plan with all of our capital improvement needs. In 18-19, again, we will focus on Station 10 and Station 13 with just some deferred maintenance issues. Finally, fire suppression services. 2017 was an extremely busy year for us, totaling 41,019 calls. We can see in each different category, fire and explosions, 2,731, emergency medical responses over 23,000, technical and heavy rescue responses over 2,000, and other categories such as hazardous conditions, response to alarms or investigations, and other public service requests, making out the balance of, again, 41,019, which was a 12% increase over the previous year, which if we look at the trend line on the next slide, typically over the past few years, we were increasing by 3 to 5% each year. This last year of a 12% spike had us a little bit worried and looking at data and attempting to make sure that we were, again, meeting the expectations of the citizens of Bakersfield. If we look closer at the fire responses from last year, we can see an increase from 2,297 to 2,731, which was 434 more fire responses. More significant was the EMS response uptick from 21,699 in 2016 to 25,361 in 2017, which was over 3,000 additional calls. With the knowledge of the increased call volume, it pleases me to present to all of you our ability to still maintain our response times of 6 minutes and 59 seconds 90% of the time. When we were doing this research, it frankly was a little shocking to us, knowing that the call volume had increased so much, but our responders, our captains, and our companies were still meeting this benchmark, which to me is we can attribute that to their knowledge of the importance of staying within their first in and being available to respond, and then responding quickly and safely to these incidents. Fire losses in 2017, we did have 5 fire fatalities. We had 7 injuries. We lost property with a total property loss of $12 million, but that property was connected to a total value of property of over $75 million. So our firefighters are making a difference in property loss in our community. Our arson division continues to be extremely busy. We have 2 company officers assigned to our arson division, and in 2017, they investigated at 352 fires, and they made 48 arrests during that year. They are also responsible for leading our fireworks task force. In 2017, we deployed 73 firefighters on task force between the dates of July 1st and July 5th. We issued 71 administrative citations and collected over $36,000 from those citations. Our action plan for 18-19 is much of the same. We will enforce illegal fireworks laws and maintain that administrative citation program, which seems to be working very well for us. Our fire training division, we graduated an academy in March of 2018. We completed several promotional exams of many ranks. We implemented a new software program called Target Solutions that allows us to deliver training to the fire stations, allowing our company officers and our companies to remain in quarters, kind of a distance learning program. And it also assists us with tracking our individual mandated training hours. It's a very good program that we just implemented. Our action plan for this next fiscal year, we do believe we will have an academy in early 2019 due to attrition and retirements of our seasoned firefighters. We will maintain our joint training facility at Olive Drive and very likely be conducting several promotional exams throughout the year. Our staffing update. We have remained relatively flat over the last several years, but we are very pleased to announce that we have at least proposed an additional inspector position within our Certified Unified Program Agency, or CUPA, which is a fully funded position through fees, fee-funded position, so it will not affect our general fund. Here's a brief shot of our academy that graduated March of 2018, 12 individuals. And a little bit of their activity. So our proposed budget allows us to positively impact our department and the citizens of Bakersfield that we serve. This budget will allow us to address some deferred maintenance on our fire facilities, will allow us to improve our fleet by replacing fire apparatus that has served its lifespan, which will allow us to respond safely and quickly for our calls for service. But most importantly, it allows us to continue to provide excellent services to the citizens of Bakersfield and then look into the future. And with that, I'd like to turn this back over to our Fire Chief, Doug Greener, for questions.
Thank you, Chief. And again, just let me thank the Fire Department budget team again for their effort and diligence in compiling the proposed budget. Thank you also to the City of Bakersfield budget team, Chris Hewott, City Manager's Office, city staff. And as always, thank you to the council for, your support over many years, not just during budgetary times, but just general support of the fire department. We all greatly appreciate it. And the men and women of the fire department are aware and greatly appreciate it as well, too. So thank you. Happy to entertain any questions.
Councilmember Parlier.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, again, your department does a fantastic job. I'm going to segue to basically the same questions I asked Chief Martin. In looking at your overall calls for service, they're going up really almost exponentially, 12% increase from 16 to 17. And looking at the other fundings for the other cities that you showed, Fresno, Glendale, and thinking of those, and looking at, we also did 657 oil well inspections. Do you have any idea how many swiftwater rescues we made last year?
That's a great question. Let me ask Chief Hartley. We'd have to actually look that data up, but it was
fine, Chief.
extremely busy.
Yeah, my point is you're doing all that plus, I'm sure these other cities aren't dealing with those items also. So my question to you, in a perfect world, where would you like your complement to be?
Well, you did mention the magic words, perfect world. In a perfect world, I think, as a Class 2 fire department, always wanting to strive for the next highest rating, to become a Class 1 fire department, which I believe there are only 60 nationwide, that would probably require us to hire between 50 and 60 additional people. That's a lot. So just let me step back from the perfect world scenario a little bit and just say, I think in terms of what we've had to reduce over the last decade, we'd be very happy to put our light engines back in service, fully staffed. They're currently cross-staffed. That would be 12 additional firefighters. We'd love to bump our arson unit back up to at least 3. You saw they remain fairly busy, and it's not that they're not handling their workload, but it's difficult when you have 2 people to schedule vacations. Mm-hmm. It's difficult to do succession planning. So we'd like to bump that back up. And I think in terms of leadership of the department, fire chief staff, we'd like to restore our deputy fire chief as well, too. So you're looking at 14 to 15 people right there, I think, is a realistic proposal. And of course, I think, if we're talking about forecasting and looking to the future, the city of Bakersfield continues to grow, the population continues to grow. At some point in time, we need to seriously look at where we're going to need new fire stations. That takes some planning. The prototypical BFD fire station, which is really value engineered, will run about $4 million to build each. It takes a minimum of 9 firefighters covering 3 shifts for 24/7 coverage. That's probably around $1.25 million a year. And then the associated facility and operational related costs too. So there's definitely, I think, particularly as you look towards the future, definitely a need there, I think, to consider, how are we going to keep our level of service going? Because we have 2 options. Either we somehow find additional funding to deal with the future, or we plan to reduce services.
Right. Well, it's a tough choice, Chief. And my concern is that no matter how good you are, and Bakersfield Fire Department is really good.
Well, thank you.
That at some point, you're going to start impacting people with, your calls for service, you're still holding your response times, but with the increase in activity, it will be a problem at some point. It's my opinion.
Yes, I agree.
And I just hope that Bakersfield as a community looks at our public safety, because I think it's really important to our community. When I talk to people, that is one of the things they bring up all the time is our public safety department. And I just hope that at some point we're able to get the funding to support you. Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, yes, sir, thank you.
Councilmember Sullivan.
Thank you. Well, good report, Chief. Of course, with the response time being so evaluated and kept track of course, our increased traffic. When I'm in the traffic and I hear a siren coming, I just am amazed how well everybody gets to where they need to be, because the traffic is certainly a challenge for the response times. But, we're just proud of our public safety departments and the image and just the attitudes and very highly thought of in our city, both fire and police. So we've had some excellent presentations. And I wanted to make note also, mentioned the Financial Services Department. Our assistant financial director gave his first presentation and really did an excellent job, as well as all of our presenters. So we're proud of our city and the way we do work together for the benefit and just for the benefit of our citizens of Bakersfield. So thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Chief.
Vice Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I just reiterate what's already been said. Every year we see the number of runs, of 41,000 runs. It's just amazing the work that you do, and the comparisons are always good to see what other cities do. So absolutely appreciate your work, and the community really does too. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Chief, to what can you attribute that 12% increase? I know our community is growing, but it just seemed to spike.
Mayor Go, that's a great question. We've looked at the data, and it's really raw response data. It's response numbers. It doesn't really necessarily correlate to any motivating factor behind the increase. As Chief Hartley noted, we typically historically have seen 3 to 5% a year. At this point in time, we're considering it sort of an anomaly, a random spike, which I think is entirely possible. But we're going to keep an eye on it and specifically see what happens this year. If we have another spike, then we've got something sort of serious going on that's going to require a little bit more analysis maybe.
Last year when I had my introductory meeting with your department, I came away thinking, these are the most brilliant marketers. You really have a great way of doing your presentations and making those comparisons, but you wouldn't be able to do that unless those were the facts. And if you weren't able to perform at that level, we wouldn't be able to see that type of marketing. So thank you so much for all of your service and the efficiencies within your department.
Thank you, Mayor.
Anyone else? Mr. Tandy, anything further? If not, we stand adjourned then. Thank you, Chief, and thank you to everybody at 2:14. And we look forward to the next round.